Hi guys, welcome to the first video on the new topic of electrolytic processes. This video is going to be focusing on what an electrolyte is. So if we start off with the definition then, an electrolyte is a liquid that is made up of ions that can be decomposed by electrolysis. So if we start off with the ions then, you should remember that an ion comes from an ionic compound and they are charged particles, anions and cations. So for example, sodium chloride contains two ions, Na+, which is your cation, and Cl-, which is your anion. Now, as we've seen in the definition, it must be a liquid. So an electrolyte is always a liquid. Now that can be melted, molten, or it can be dissolved in solution aqueous. But the charged particles must be free to move, otherwise it is not an electrolyte. The second part of the definition then, decomposed by electrolysis, that means broken down using electricity. So you're taking an ionic compound, you're dissolving it or melting it, and then you're using electricity to break it back into its original elements. So how do you know if something's an electrolyte then? As long as you've got either the formula or the name, you can work it out. It also helps to know if it's soluble or not. So sodium carbonate, which I've got here, contains a metal, which is sodium, and it contains a carbonate, CO3 2-, which is made up of non-metals. So if I've got a metal and a non-metal, that is ionic. It is soluble, therefore it is an electrolyte. So you can melt it, you can dissolve it, and it will be an electrolyte. Now in the example of silver chloride, which is insoluble, the first thing you do is you look at whether you've got a metal or non-metal, which you do, silver being your metal, chlorine being your non-metal, and all you need to know there is as long as that is in liquid form, it is an electrolyte. So although it's insoluble, you can still melt it, therefore it's an electrolyte. And then finally, if you've got glucose, for example, C6H12O6, it might be soluble, however, it's only made up of non-metals. If they're all non-metals, then it cannot be an electrolyte. It must have charged particles, it must have ions in it. Okay, let's have a look at a few questions then. So there are only a few ways they can ask you about electrolytes, and these are some of them. So number one, describe what an electrolyte is, which is worth 2 marks for 2 points. Number two, explain whether molten lithium chloride, LiCl, is an electrolyte or not, for 2 marks. So look at the compound, tell me whether it is, and then tell me why or why not that is the case. And then question 3, have a look at the 4 different compounds, look at what they contain, whether it contains a metal or a non-metal, and tell me whether they are electrolytes. A simple yes or no for each will do. Pause the video, have a go, and we'll see how you've done shortly. Okay, let's have a look at how you've done. So the first one then, which was describe what an electrolyte is, you get the first mark for saying a liquid that contains ions or charged particles I would have accepted. And then the second mark is for saying that can be decomposed or broken down using electricity or electrolysis. So any of those words combined together will get you your 2 marks. Question 2, explain whether molten lithium chloride, LiCl, is an electrolyte or not. So the first thing, look at your periodic table. Have you got a metal? Yes. Have you got a non-metal? Yes. Therefore, it is an electrolyte. And then your second part, the explanation, is it contains ions or charged particles. I might have accepted it contains a metal and a non-metal, but I'd like you to be specific. Say they are ions or charged particles. Question 3, identify whether the following are electrolytes. So 4 marks, 1 mark for each. CO2, you've got carbon, and you've got oxygen, both are non-metals, so it is not an electrolyte. Magnesium oxide, you have a metal, you have a non-metal, it's already in a liquid state, so it's melted, so it's an electrolyte. Copper sulfate, you've got your copper metal, you've got your sulfate anion, which is a non-metal, it's aqueous, it's dissolved, therefore it's an electrolyte. And then finally, C6H12, carbon, hydrogen, both non-metals, therefore it is not an electrolyte. So 1 mark for each one of those correct. That's pretty much the end of this video. There is a review question for you, which is explain why molten potassium bromide, KBr, is classed as an electrolyte, whereas solid carbon, diamond, is not. Have a go at it. Again, look exactly the same way we've done in the previous examples, and let me know how you've done. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, click on subscribe, visit the website, and have a look at the latest video. Thanks for watching.